YouTube, it's Kenya and I'm back. We're doing a new series here. If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of this Makeup 101 Basics series, then make sure you click here or here to see the first 2 videos that I've done. We're going to continue on and we're going to do our foundation and our contouring today. So unfortunately my camera died the day that I was that I already did my brows and my color correcting, and I was just gonna continue, but it is what it is. First things first, let me just tell you guys that I did already prime my face. I did that before I did my brows. The primer I did use before all of this was this Makeup Forever. This never focuses for me. There we go. It's the Makeup Forever Step 1 Skin Equalizer Base Mattifying Primer. Jesus Christ, these products always have like the longest names. Anyways, that's what I start off with. Make sure that you pat that in, concentrating around the areas where your pores are the largest. I'll say for me that's over here, and I also concentrate it on my forehead because that's where I get the oiliest. The oiliest? The most oily? I don't know what's the right way to say that, but figure it out. Either way. So to go on to the tools that we're going to use, I'll tell you what I used to use and what I use now. So to start off, I used to use this Tarte Bamboo Airbrush Foundation Brush. This is really my favorite brush to use. It's kind of falling apart just because I've had it for so long. But it was one of my favorite brushes when I did use a brush, which brings me to the second product. I like to use a beauty blender now to put on my foundation, and not just a beauty blender, a damp beauty blender. And I know you guys have heard this before, everyone says it. Beauty blenders and or any other sponge, but beauty blender specifically, really gives you such a flawless makeup application when you're blending your concealer and when you're putting on your foundation. And I think it's essential that everyone has a beauty blender, and I know they can be hard and intimidating to use at first. I will say it was a while before I really learned how to use the beauty blender correctly, but it was so worth it because after I figured out that, oh, I can put my foundation on with this, I can put anything on with this, I mean, it looked perfect, it looked flawless. There is a cheaper option, the Real Techniques beauty sponge. I don't want to call it a beauty blender because it's not the same, but a beauty sponge. My only issue with this one, I love using this as well. I use this during the week if you saw my everyday face routine. I love using this, and I use it with my tinted moisturizers every day, honestly, and then I tend to use my beauty blender on the weekends when I'm like doing a whole big to-do. But the only problem is that I notice with a lot of washes, it gets a little like holy, I don't know, it kind of starts falling apart. You don't have to use a beauty blender, obviously. You can use that brush I mentioned. I would suggest using an airbrush finish foundation brush because those tend to give the best coverage. With that aside, we're gonna go on to our products. I did use a drugstore foundation for a while, maybe when I was in college, and it was this, and I mean, I know this has been out forever, so I know I have like the older one, but this is the Maybelline Fit Me foundation, and the one I have is, I have to like bend down for this to even focus correctly. The one I have is in the color 355. I'm not sure the name of the color exactly, coconut. It matched my foundation, I mean, it matched my skin pretty well. I really had no problems with it. The only reason I tend not to buy drugstore products is because I really hate getting home, opening it, trying it out, and then it's not my foundation color, which is just, it's horrible. So that's an option. If you saw my everyday face makeup routine, you'll notice or you'll recognize my Laura Mercier tinted moisturizer in the color Mocha. These are all around my skin tone range if you are my skin tone. See, there we go. And I'm not exactly sure what I am in MAC foundations just because I haven't used them for so long. I'm sorry, they freak me out. I'll try to match myself soon, and hopefully it can give you like a good idea of what skin color I am, so if you think that you're my skin color, you can get these. I just recently tried this Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation. I will say that this foundation is amazing if you want a foundation that is not going to move. The few times I wore this, my foundation didn't, from what I know, from what I remember, it didn't transfer and it stayed on the longest of any of the foundations I've tried. But it isn't my favorite, A, because I think it might have broken me out a little bit. I don't know if you can see a little bit of this. I think it might have broken me out a little bit. And B, because when you're trying to contour, and because it's one of those stay in place long wear foundations, it tends to be tacky and sticky and it takes a while to set, so it feels like a drying face mask. It kind of feels like a little bit sticky for a while, and it makes it kind of hard to blend out your concealer and your contour color. So I do love this for when I want to make sure that this is going to stay, my makeup's going to stay in place, but at the same time I have an issue with the blendability of my other products when I do use this foundation. So now we're going to get to my all-time favorite holy grail of foundations. I don't think I can ever stray. Anytime I try a new foundation, I always end up coming back to my NARS All Day Luminous Foundation in the color New Guinea. That's medium dark 5 if you're anywhere near my skin tone. I love this foundation. It's so light. It gives like a gorgeous coverage. It's just, it doesn't feel like you have something so heavy on your face. Everything's weightless. You can blend everything very well. My only issue with it is that it tends to transfer a little bit. It's the only thing I hate. Those are my go-to foundations for now. I gave a drugstore option, I gave my tinted moisturizer option, my won't budge and it's gonna stay in place forever and ever if you don't wash it off option, and my all-time favorite. And I mean, most of the time I just go straight for this NARS All Day Luminous Foundation. So we're gonna get started, and I have to use my all-time favorite, anything that I use when I'm going out. If you've watched any of my other videos, which you totally should, if you've watched any of my other videos, you're gonna see that I always reach for this. Let's get started. I'm just gonna put a little bit on the back of my hand. I'm gonna start off with 2 pumps. I think mine might be running out, so you know what? I'm just gonna stick another one on there. And you know, the people at the counter or wherever you go are gonna tell you to use 1 pump. That'll work for me. So I always go for like 2 to 3. And I'm going to use the blunt end of my beauty blender. This is damp. I did wash this, and I washed it while I was doing right before I did my brows and I did my color correcting. So by the time that I was ready to use it, it's like the perfect damp consistency. You know what I mean. So we're gonna dip it in here and we're gonna start buffing it on our face. Things tend to work out well for me when I go in circular motion, so you know, I'm just gonna do that. And if you watch my color correcting video, you'll see now that for the most part the orange is completely concealed. And I'm going to do half of my face just so you can see the difference here. You know, I can go on forever and ever about that foundation, so I will. The other great thing about this is, even if you're oily like me, and I love a matte finish, and I am going to end up making this matte, but if you don't want it to be matte, like, you can still kind of look dewy. And like you see over here, I'm not dewy at all. I mean, I did wash my face and I put some moisturizer on and I put my primer on, and it was a mattifying primer, but if you want to look dewy, you can look dewy. And if you want to make this matte, you can make it matte, which is what I usually do. With half of my face, I'm going to use as much as I can for the rest of the product on the other half, and then I'm probably going to need to go in for a pump or 2 more. We'll do 2 more pumps and see where it brings us. That might be the only downside to the beauty blender. I'm pretty sure that when I used a brush, I only used like 2 or 3 pumps for my whole face. But I've been noticing now, and maybe I'm just putting on more makeup, who knows. But I'm noticing now that I could be I could be actually like losing some product in here. I mean, of course I'm losing some product. And if I'm right, this foundation's like $48. But lucky for me, I have a really good friend at NARS who loves me. Shout out to Brianna. Okay. You guys just want to go a little bit on your neck. And you know, I know I spent like 10 minutes just doing this, but slow and steady wins the race. And because this is like so amazing, it gives you such a nice coverage. I just want to make sure that it's completely smooth. I'm actually going to zoom you guys in here, so give me a moment. So if you can see better, here's the foundation.